Hello, world. That's right. The whole world.
The whole entire world is listening.
Perfect.
I haven't checked recently, but somehow I was listening to a past podcast where I was talking about like somebody's listened to us in Mongolia and we were ranked in Sweden for a while. And I'm like, how are these people finding us? I don't know, but it's, I know that there's things that people complain about in the modern world and everything, but as a Sagittarius and loving the whole world, I love how easy it is for us to connect with everybody out there. And the other thing I think that's cool about it is, we have this belief that people around the world are like so much different than us. And when you actually get to meet people from other parts of the world, like we are all still the same. Like,
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things I was thinking about this morning. I'm going to bring it back to TikTok. Honestly, TikTok should send me money. Like, I suppose I should give my opinions on TikTok. It worked better if I did that. But anyway, they'll find me. So I was watching a TikTok this morning and it was a Maya Angelou interview, and she was talking about anger versus bitterness, right? And when I heard this message, I was like, wow, this is it's such a good message for one person, and it's a great message for the whole world, and with quote unquote everything going on in the world. And so what she was saying is that anger, we look down on it, but anger is not a bad emotion. And I'm paraphrasing and maybe elaborating a little bit, but her message was essentially that anger is something that protects you from something that might be bad that's happening, right? Like somebody hits you or somebody offends you or whatever it is, you're going to get angry in the moment. And she's like, I love anger. Absolutely. Feel it and, go through with it and then release it, because the bad part of anger, the after effect, is bitterness. And bitterness is what eats you up, right? That's drinking the poison. That's making yourself sick for years and years and years. You don't want bitterness. But, even in Buddhism, there are wrathful manifestations, right, of different divinities or deities, let's say. And again, it's kind of like, how like when you were going to do something stupid, like cross the street without looking both ways, and your mom would give you a smack and be like, hey, get your shit back in line, like it's kind of like that, like sometimes that anger has to be there to kind of keep you safe or just bring something into your awareness, but then release it and don't be bitter. I don't know. What do you think?
so, well, in my work here, in my little sanctuary space here, part of the healing work that I do does involve emotions. And, a lot of times we think that when we are angry at someone or we're mad at them or whatever, that we're punishing them, when the truth of the matter is we're only punishing ourselves. Like, you can be mad at them all you want and they just get to go on with their life, but it's you that it eats away at. And I think it's really important that you feel your feels, that you acknowledge them, but then at some point, like, it's time to let it go. And you're the one that's in charge of that. You get to decide that. And but if you don't let it go, and sometimes people think they've letting it go, but really all they did was like bury it deep down somewhere inside where it's like festering and creating all kinds of other problems. And so feel it, acknowledge it, tell it's okay. It's okay that you feel these things. It's normal. And at some point, if you want to be well, if you want to have a good life and enjoy it, you got to let it go.
Yeah. And the sooner the better, honestly, right? Like that's the really the crux of it, is the longer you hang on to it, right? The worse it is. And that goes honestly for all the emotions, because guilt, shame, and embarrassment and all of these things, feel it for a second. Sure, it can feel like crap for a second, but leave it and move on. And also, even being all blissed out, you can't stay in a super blissed out all the time, because you still have to, come back and do the things all the time, right? So have all the feelings, just have them all, in a nice little flow, right? In and out. Anyway, speaking of flow, let's bring on our guest.
Here we go.
Hello.
Welcome to the show, Gabriela.
Thank you. Thank you guys
We're
for
happy
having
you're here.
me. I'm so happy to be here too.
Can you please take a moment to introduce yourself to our audience? Tell them a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what keeps you passionate about what you do.
Yeah, my name is Gabriela Herstik, and I am an author, a creatrix, and a sacred slut in devotion to the goddess of love. And my work really, I just say that my purpose is to destigmatize sex, witchcraft, and the goddess. So my work really aims to help people of all ages and gender expressions and all walks of life just connect to the magic within themselves, live a life that is aligned with something greater than themselves, connect to the magic of the earth and the elements, and connect to their own sense of pleasure and beauty and expansiveness and peace and all the yummy stuff that living a life in connection to the cosmic, to the cycles of the earth, the self, just my work, I just want to help people live a more magical life in touch with the goddess and their sensuality.
I love it. She's like the ideal guest with her. Our mission and your mission are very much aligned.
I
we
know,
talk
I love it.
we talk, I talk about pleasure all the time, and I always say, like, life should be pleasurable, right? Even
Mhm.
if you do something that's really challenging and
Exactly.
maybe feels difficult, it should still be pleasurable, right? Um,
Yeah.
so talk to us a little bit more about what it looks like to work with you. How do you work with folks, and how do you move them forward?
Yeah, I feel like the main way that I share is through books and through writing. I'm an Aquarius. I've always loved writing, and my background is actually in fashion writing and fashion journalism. And I ended up writing about witchcraft because it kind of just happened that way. So I write a lot of books. I have a podcast as well. So those are kind of like I feel like baseline foundational ways that I share, because I feel like, whether you're getting my books from a used bookstore, from a friend, from a library, or you're listening to my podcast for free, like, I love having things that everybody can, take what they want and leave the rest. Beyond that, I do also have an essay series on Patreon and share a lot of stuff on there. And currently, I definitely am in the process of like shifting the ways that I offer my work, but I do also teach classes, and for a long time was leading sex magic discussion circles. So I'm kind of always changing my offerings, but classes, leading rituals, books and podcasts, as well as like essays, are like the meat and potatoes, I would say. But I really like my something that I think is really important is that, like, I'm not a guru. I'm not the end all be all. I am not like the person that's going to I'm the maybe the catalyst or the conduit, but like one of the reasons I don't really do spell work for people is I have now started doing like Reiki and stuff on people that I'm close to, but like I don't offer these services professionally because I think that there are other people that are better for the healing work. And as far as spell work, I think like I want to empower people to do this work for themselves, to have a connection to the divine that is so personal that they have their own language and correspondences and associations, and they have the knowledge and the framework to guide them in creating rituals of pleasure, right? And connecting to life as a means of magic. Like for me, one of the things I say in my work is you're not just a witch or a devotee when you're like at your altar praying, or when you're doing a full moon ritual or spell. You're a witch because it's the way that you move through the world. You worship the goddess because it's how you're connected to something greater. Like these are lenses we live our life in. And once we kind of have like the language to understand the way these things connect, then it infuses our life with even more meaning. But for me, like that's what magic is. Like magic is love and compassion, and I just want to lead people into living lives that feel more meaningful and pleasureful, like you were saying, Graciela. So
And I love that you talk about empowering people. Like,
yeah.
even for myself, is, people come to see me for healing. You know, as a physical therapist for 32 years, and now I'm functioning as a holistic healer, and part of that shift is also more bringing people into the awareness that I'm never healing them. They are healing themselves, and I'm just here to help show them the tools. But I think that is such an important part of the new age coming in, is that people are empowered to do these things, and that they don't become dependent on us to do these things for them, but we can be here to show them the way to claim their power and access these things themselves.
Exactly.
So let's get into it a little bit more. Tell us more about what is, what did you call it? Sex magic, which sex, what'd you call it?
It's probably sex magic or something.
Sex
Sexuality. Yeah.
What was it? That was such a good phrase. Let's talk about it a bit more.
Wait, I have to ask. So, Julieta, you're a Sagittarius. Graciela, what's your sign?
Pisces.
Oh, beautiful.
I'm a lover, not a fighter.
I love it. I see it. Yeah, okay. I just had to ask, of course. But yeah, sex magic, the really short version of it is working with sexual energy for a desired outcome. A lot of people, the easiest ways to think about it for like manifesting, which it's a lot deeper than that, but it's an easy way to kind of understand it. Like sexual energy and naturally comes to a peak, right? Like just like when we're in a ritual and we're raising energy, when we're having sex or when we're orgasming or getting as close to it as we can, just raising sexual energy, there naturally is a peak. So at that time, when you're practicing sex magic, you think about whatever it is you want to manifest, let's say. So you can be like, oh, I want to manifest $100. And then you like, you know, you come or you get as close as you can to orgasm. And at that peak, you visualize, like Aleister Crowley would visualize like gold coins on him, but maybe you visualize it like raining on you with like dollar bills and like all these hundreds just like floating at you, or you visualize yourself like seeing the $100 in your bank account or whatever it is, right? You visualize it. And then you do that at the peak of the energy raising. And then in the afterglow, when you're like in this state of like pleasure and kind of in this altered state, you go even deeper and you allow yourself to feel what it would feel like to have that money. Like, what would you do with it? How would it feel? And like, you just sink into that. So it's really just using sexual energy in a spiritual context. Like sex magic proper is working with sexual energy to transform a situation. So that could be something, like I said, getting money, but it could also be something like calling in more sexy relationships or calling in a partner. It could be healing old patterns around love and lust. So if you're like, like I've noticed that I've had a lot of resistance to opening my heart. So I'm going to make this a ritual of self-pleasure, and that can be sex magic, right? Like I'm going to bring in something like I'm going to bring in roses, and I'm going to bring in cacao, maybe some chocolate, and I'm going to have this really beautiful ritual where I can masturbate and make self-love. And as I get to this peak of this energy raising, I'm going to send the energy into my heart space, and I'm going to visualize my heart space. And as I'm coming, like just allowing the energy to move through that. Like you can really create rituals using this energy for whatever you want. And that's why I really love sex magic, because it's like, it's kind of like decentralized. Like it's like non-dogmatic, because sex is something that everybody experiences. Like you guys were talking about, everybody's the same, right? Like I mean, I don't think everybody pays taxes, definitely in the US, but we all experience death and we almost all have sex. So sex, death, and taxes, or whatever the quote is, right? Like, so sex magic can be something like offering your orgasms to Venus or a goddess, or offering like, or working with this energy and moving it through your body, or connecting to somebody. It's a way of incorporating something that I think witchcraft and paganism does a good job of honoring, which is sexuality, but that a lot of occult, like I also study Western occultism. I'm a Hermetic Kabbalist, and study like that kind of magic as well. And a lot of that stuff, there is this connection to sexuality, but it's like it is kind of hierarchical and dogmatic and policed by men. And it's like, I don't jive with that. I feel like for me, like, all acts of love and pleasure are the rituals of the goddess. So incorporating something like sexuality that's so natural, that has been a part of different spiritual traditions actually since way before the church. And the church is actually the one that said that it was bad, but tantric Buddhism, Hinduism, Sufism, like Gnostic Christianity, Kabbalah, like all of these different traditions, so many different traditions, pretty much every spiritual tradition has had an aspect of sexuality as spiritual and as holy, and has seen sex and spirit as the same, because having like a transcendental sexual experience can bring you closer to the divine. Orgasms are portals to that. So I mean, I feel like this is the story of witchcraft, but women being empowered to know how to heal, to know, connect to their bodies, to connect to other people, to connect to the earth, like to connect to sexuality. That's always been a threat to the patriarchy, right? So I feel like sex magic now is finally being shared in a way that's not just from like a male straight perspective, or just a male perspective, or like a dick perspective. Like there's a lot of voices now and a lot of opportunity for people to discover sex magic for themselves. So sorry for my TED talk, but here we are.
Love it.
Thanks for coming.
Well, when you initially were starting to talk about it, you were talking about money as like, I think for many people out there, this does seem like a taboo subject, but you were talking about this, and what is one of like the most well-known books on achieving success is Napoleon's Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and is a whole chapter on using sexual energy to manifest abundance. So, they've tried to hide it, but here in this very like traditional success book, they talk about using sexual energy to manifest. And
and it's like I think at a certain point, like the tabooness is kind of a point of power, because when you're breaking a taboo, you are releasing immense amount of power. So if it is something that feels edgy for you, actually it's probably like a really beautiful thing to dive into. I think that having like sexual relationship with yourself is very powerful. And I do feel like if there's kind of an edge there, then that can be a really powerful offering. And actually be like, like working with sex magic feels like this kind of weird thing. Like that can actually make it even more powerful, because you're doing something that feels a little bit scary. And that is, that does release an immense amount of energy if you're breaking a personal taboo or transgression.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as to your journey, how you got here and how you came to these where you are now. A lot of the times we talk to our audience about limiting beliefs, right? We all believe something and we're so ingrained in it until there's a switch and something happens and switches over, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I used to believe that. Now I believe this. So tell us about those limiting beliefs that you had. What did you have to let go of to get to the point where you are now?
I feel like for me, as for many women, it's probably imposter syndrome. And I feel like that was something that like I was really battling up until like a couple years ago. Um, so for myself, like I'm very grateful for this path. Like I did not anticipate writing witchcraft books. And I honestly feel like at a certain point, that's what happened, because it just, like it was just meant to be. I thought I was going to be like writing for a fashion magazine in New York or something, which it's a dying industry, unfortunately. So grateful for not doing that. But I started writing. I've been writing for a long time. I was, writing blogs and writing articles for years and years and years before I got paid, and started writing professionally in college about, I had been my background's in fashion writing. I had been writing in college, and I wrote my first book at 23, and it came out when I was 24, and I was very young. And I'd been a practicing witch for over a decade at that point. I'd written for NYLON magazine and one of Vice's feminist verticals on witchcraft and like other places. And I was approached to write my first book, and I did. And I feel like I had a lot of imposter syndrome from that, which like I'm grateful for. I'm an Aquarius. Like I'm never trying to have an ego. I'm not trying to be like, I know everything, especially like as like a 23, 24-year-old, like I didn't. But I felt like I had a lot of just like a lot of imposter syndrome. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, and at that age, like I was just still trying to find my voice and trying to find even my niche within witchcraft because it's such a big field, you know, like, and I not to be like the witchcraft bubble has like burst, but like it definitely has always, you know, any witch who has been around knows it goes in peaks and valleys, and like the the way that people receive the information changes and how they receive that information changes. But I feel like I don't know if there was like a specific switch. But I do feel like after writing my book Sacred Sex and then writing my tarot deck and now Goddess Energy, like those 3 books symbolize the like alchemical crucible, or like the nexus of my work. Like my work, like one of the things that I think the what happened with the imposter syndrome, I think, is that like after writing Sacred Sex, I really felt like I refined my voice and my writing ability, and I grew a lot more confident with that. And then also after writing that book, I feel like I just was able to have this clarity of the like recognizing that like my work is like I'm so sorry. My brain is still turning on, I think. So I'm like, I have the words in my head and they're just like not solidifying. So my Mercury Pisces is having a moment right now. But like once I really was like, I'm here for the goddess. I'm here to talk about like witchcraft and to talk about sexuality. Like that is like that intersection is like the intersection of the esoteric and the erotic is like what I am really fascinated by. And once I like said fuck it and just like accepted that, and also like for me, part of it's that like I'm now just after like 4.5 years of doing sex work, like talking about it and talking about how that feeds into my work with witchcraft, that finding like realizing that like my Scorpio moon, Jupiter, my Aquarius, Venus, Mars, Sun, like my birth chart is reflected in like my purpose. My purpose is reflected in my birth chart. I was like, fuck it. Like, this is my path. This is what I'm here to do. Like,
Lean in.
yeah, I'm gonna lean in. And part of like
I love that part of your realization or your letting go of those limiting beliefs was in the doing. You know, so many times we say to ourselves, "Oh, I will release that book when I become a good enough writer, or I'll perform in public when I become a good enough musician, or whatever it is," right? Like I will let go of this particular, you know, way of being when I reach this whatever, but you can't reach it until you do it, right? So like look at you writing and writing and writing, and that's how you realize, oh, wait a minute, I am good at this shit. Like wait, hey, look at me, I'm picking up speed, right? Like that's really incredible. You sound like a book addict like the rest of us.
I
You're
love
in,
books.
yeah, you're in good company here. We all have I'm gonna call them book addictions, but in a good way, you know.
I like, you know, I feel like I just turned 30. I'm a youngin', but I do feel like different than the Gen Z kids because I'm like, I have like so many of my initiations were books. So many of my initiations were books sitting in Borders in Barnes and Noble in the witchcraft section, going to used bookstores, like being passed on my mom's books. And I'm like, obviously, like TikTok's huge, but I'm just like, books are never going to go away. And it feels like such a gift to be able to, like, knowing that I have been a lot of people's introduction to witchcraft, that like my books or those books is like, it's like, it literally makes me cry. Like, it's such a gift. And yeah, I'm really, really grateful for writing. I feel like I would explode if I couldn't write. And I'm really grateful for reading because I read like 10 books at a time. So.
You're in good company.
I was gonna say, sounds like somebody else we know. So we have links to your books in the show notes and stuff, but I'm curious, is there another book out there that you think every goddess should read?
Ooh, is there another book out there I think every other goddess should read? Okay, so there's so many, and I'm like, which one? I feel like if you're like, I want to know about the goddess, I feel like When God Was a Woman by Berlin Stone would probably be my like intro. Again, not everything is perfect, but I think that understanding the scope of the goddess religion and the history of the goddess is really validating for a lot of people and for me. And then if you want like really nerdy goddess history, I would say Myth of the Goddess. But I don't remember her name. So those are like my heady witchy books. And then what's my other one?
I'm on Amazon right now, like adding to cart.
Myth of the Goddess is like this big and I have like a million post-it notes in it. I got really into goddess history like right before I wrote Goddess Energy, which was the beginning of 2020, like just diving head deep. And I'm just gonna say this one. I don't think she's perfect, but I have this Louise Hay, The Power Within You right here. And this book is just like one of those books that you don't have to like, there's a lot of exercises in it, but it's one of those books that you read it and it works on your heart. Like it's just really affirming and reminds you of your own power. And if you're like me and you live with anxiety or mental illness, just remember that that's a whole other ballpark. And yeah, but I really like Louise Hay for like some just remembering who the fuck you are vibes. I could go on and on. I'm just gonna stop there because I would have to like go look at my bookshelf and I'm not gonna do that to you guys.
Well, and Gabriela, I can only afford so much. I'm on Amazon.
But there's this one website that's like a free. Do you know Scribed? Are you guys familiar with Scribed?
Okay, so I'm like 1,000 years old and I need paper. So I know I'm just gonna plant a tree and to make up for it. I'm sorry, but like
I have
like 100 trees.
I get it. I have like my Kindle for like certain books. Like there's certain goddess books or occult books that are hard to find, that are easier to find like on Kindle or like are cheaper. But I love writing in my books. I love underlining my books. I love bringing them into the bath. Like people that are like precious about their books, I'm like, I cannot relate. I'm like intimate with them. I'm like, I like the smell. I like writing. I like crying on the pages. I'm like, I will break the binding. I don't fucking care. Like this is my best friend now. It's fine.
We might have to agree to disagree on that one. I don't know about the spine breaking. I'm all about the highlighting and the writing. A spine breaking, that might have gone a little too far. But I will tell you,
I don't care about them.
I was in New York once and I stopped at a little Tibetan library. Like it was so tiny, but all the books in there were ancient. So I literally just opened up these books that were like hundreds of years old and stuck my nose right in. I was looking around like, I hope nobody's seeing me, but I was just like nose deep. Talk about pleasure, nose deep in hundreds of year-old books. And anyway, so I get it.
Wait, Gracia, do you have Taurus placements? Because I feel like you have Taurus placements.
Oh, I don't know. I never remember any of that. I'm sure Julietta probably has all my stuff memorized. But my children,
I do not have your stuff memorized. I struggle to memorize my own.
I know. I have my whole entire chart thing, and it was like a 4-hour explanation, and I can never remember them at all.
I bet you have Taurus. I bet you have Taurus placements.
I have Taurus children. I made them, so.
Oh, then you definitely have Taurus placements. It runs in families.
Right? I have twins. I have boy-girl twins. But
Wait, you have a twin, or you have twin daughters?
I have I have boy-girl twin children.
Oh, cute. I'm a twin.
Are you? Aww.
I'm a fraternal twin. I have a sister.
Oh,
okay. I love being a twin. I love being a twin. And we were born on 2/2, so we're like really twins anyway.
I love that.
Oh. Well, we are starting to run out of time here, but I'm just curious if you have one parting nugget of wisdom that you'd like to leave for our audience today.
I feel like I say this to everybody, but I just feel like it's important because of the world we live in. You can't think your way to goddess. You have to feel, you have to be in your body, you have to be in tune with your heart. So I hope that everybody today is able to just like take a deep breath and like be with their body and like find the goddess there instead of being in your head and trying to do it up there.
Absolutely.
It's just funny because earlier, like just before you got on, I had the thought that for folks seeking God goddess, stop looking, because you
Mhm.
are that. You are
Mhm.
that. It is you. It is within you, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
it's so, yeah, this is just how messages work, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Gabriela. It has been such a pleasure having you on.
Mm.
If anybody wants to reach out and find out more information or check out her books, please check out the show notes. And you can also find more information about Graciela and I in the show notes. And with that, I want to thank you all for listening and wish you all a magical day.
Bye.